Hopefully I can cut this out of the live stream replay. But oh damn, first person in here. Oh damn, we got a couple people watching. It'll be crazy in here. My bad. What's up, everybody? We'll just kind of chat. We'll start 5 minutes or so. How are you guys tonight, though? Profile picture looks familiar. Name pop up before, but I hope you're doing good. What's up, man? I've definitely seen your name come across a few times. Good to be kicking it with you guys. Glad the market's kind of stabilized today. But we're gonna review a lot of stuff. Main thing I want to talk about, I guess we'll kind of do like an overview of what am I trying to say? Kind of what the YouTube videos are about this week, but we'll do kind of in person and then get everybody's questions answered up. Yeah, I'm doing good. T Vietnam, you think we'll recover? Yeah, as of right now, I don't have any reason to worry. I mean, it's definitely going to get, emotion-wise, it's not necessarily over. Like, I think it could get scary in a sense, right? But, just like I'm talking about, oh man, don't tell me I'm going to lag hard. But, we were scared and worried in there, that being, the low, coming back and retesting something in here. It's not necessarily uncommon. All right. It's my first time streaming on here. So let me see if I can fix this lag. I don't want to mess with that. But yes, to answer your question, I do think we'll see a recovery. All right. Damn, that's not any better. Let's see, you can move this like this. Like I said, first live stream, y'all gotta bear with me. But I think this is okay. I can manage with this. I can still see the chat. As for the coins you mentioned, Dogecoin, yeah, I'm pretty long Dogecoin right now. I mean it'll recover just like any other blue chip. Pepe, it'll recover with the memes. I haven't looked at any meme coin charts as of late. I would imagine they don't look too great, if we're being honest. But if Bitcoin's going to recover, that means Ethereum will recover. If Ethereum is going to recover, altcoin market will probably be fine. Total 2, stuff like that. But yeah, it's crazy. And I mean, at the end of the day, it does boil down to like it being another dip. But actually, one of the most craziest things I've ever seen in the market. People, I feel like they say that a lot, and I even said that maybe just 2 weeks ago when we had 2 liquidations, $2 billion liquidations in the same week. That was pretty wild. That was crazy. That's something I had never seen before. But $20 billion in long liquidations was wild. The kind of back end, what allowed that to happen, we'll talk about in the live stream today. And I also have a super long YouTube video out. I think all of you guys are in my Discord, but I post I post the YouTube videos early in there, so those are out in there. You guys will probably get the live explanation. I'll try to move a little bit quick. I'm kind of being selfish too. There's a lot of reasons I'm going to move quick. One, I've been up since like 6 this morning. It's 10 where I'm at. So been working all day. Two, this is my third time explaining this stuff because I met with clients Friday and Sunday and made videos today and live stream. But I wanted to get on here. I thought it would be potential to be like kind of a scary Monday. Actually ended up being pretty good. So I'm glad we could stabilize a little bit. But yeah, Mason, my dog. What's up, bro? Glad you checked in. You were ready to get in early. I had started a little bit early, but glad you guys are here. I think we'll go ahead and get started. First half of this, or really, like I said, I did a live stream this weekend with clients, so pretty much going to give you guys the same exact live stream. I think it's what's it called? I think, after when something crazy like Friday happens, I give away like a lot of information, I feel like for free, and I'm down to talk about really whatever. But definitely when something crazy like this happens and it's like do or die and we all lose a shit ton of money, like we're all going to be in this together. So I don't see any benefit even to myself for like withholding information here. But Mason, you're the one who messaged me that, what's it called? Y'all's 1 year anniversary was literally on Friday when the market dipped. Honestly, that sucks. Sorry, I know your girl's watching. I said she was bad luck, but if it happens again next year, maybe I'm not going to finish that sentence, but let's get into it. Bitcoin, I mean, pretty straightforward. We've literally just been watching for 107K to hold since back in August. We got the bounce. We're going to retest it. I retest it. We end up taking out the range high. I had some fib extensions from this kind of previous pattern, if you will, or price action that had some targets out here. I thought, we would hit it, maybe consolidate, or had an opportunity to consolidate. Obviously, plenty of support down below just with key levels. You guys know I love my levels. Also, daily fair value gaps, but choosing violence as the crypto market typically does. Slicing through all of our supports, taking out the range low, and fighting to kind of invert this fair value gap is really the next step. That kind of black line right there is somewhat included when we're talking about it. But yeah, that's kind of our focus, is continue to hold 107. Can we start flipping these levels? Can we flip this fair value gap? More near term, and you will see this echoed throughout the live stream. But when you get these large liquidation events, damn, I'm really going to share everything here today. If you guys trade, or really just for in general, these fib settings, go back, watch, screenshot. These are nasty. These are really, really good. But typically when you get these large liquidations, what's it called? You will go fill out some of this wick, right? It's just natural. There's a lot of liquidity that builds up pretty quickly. We're kind of taking out a level right now, people trying to jump back in, things like that. But you will fill out a lot of these wicks. Some altcoin wicks are literally down to 0. So the likelihood of those filling out all the way, 50% of the way, however much, is kind of becomes less likely, if I'm being honest. But when we look at a Bitcoin, when we look at major coins, when we look at XRP, Solana, Ethereum, filling out some of that wick, and 8% of a breakout with Bitcoin dominance where it's at. Referring to the dynamic being bullish for altcoins. So our main focus, right, is just Bitcoin and Ethereum. Like, let's stabilize, let's fill out the wicks, let's move on. And we'll talk about later in this video. Everything we talk about kind of ties together. It's kind of annoying for it to be like that. I understand. Like, I wish I could just be like, hey, Bitcoin hits this level, boom, we're gonna go here, blah blah blah. but everything ties in together. And then you guys probably somewhat drawn to the channel is I have been, screaming alt season, really when Total 2 breaks out, but just the fact that alt season is coming and the focus is going to be in the altcoin market really since like April. And for our altcoins to do well, we have to track a lot of things because so many things have to line up. And then the altcoin market has a shot at doing good, right? Not even a guarantee, a shot. Total 2 is a guarantee that it's doing good and is performing well. But again, we're not seeing breakouts and stuff like that in Total 2 in altcoins if we're down here filling out wick lows on Bitcoin. So kind of long-winded, but I say that to say, even though it's tempting to be looking at your altcoins right now and watching them flip-flop up, 60% down, whatever, this, they're going to be extremely volatile. The main focus is going to be Bitcoin and Ethereum right now, just for getting out of the current ranges that we're in, things like that. Ethereum, we got a new low on, right? New low here. Bitcoin, higher low, I guess, if you're referring to the bodies. But anyways, swept this liquidity down here. Again, you guys know I made a video, Ethereum not trading below $4,000 again. Traded below a day here, bounce back above, and even with those liquidations, right, 2 days under 4,000 and then back above. So while I wasn't right really at all, I was completely wrong actually. $4,000 seems to be kind of an area where it's like cheap Ethereum in people's minds. I can buy it at 4 and it's going to 5, it's going to 7, whatever, even if you're a near-term trader. But again, Bitcoin, Ethereum, main focus. Got back into this fair value gap that we kind of sliced through on Ethereum that I really did think, like, with all this support underneath, that we had a decent shot of building, some sort of flag or base, and getting out. Wasn't in the cards with the amount of leverage, and that's okay. Glad that we'll see this range 4250 to 4350, and then Bitcoin. Okay, I think I'm back now. Wow, that was weird. It was letting me type in the chat, and then it's like not letting me back in. So hopefully I'm back. I'm just going to start talking as if I'm back, and we will see if we get some chats in there. But that definitely sucks. Not good for viewership to be lagging right in the middle of the stream. All right, we are back. Similar things on Total 2, right? We're talking about we got levels beneath us. We need to see hold. If we're going to go get it right now, that's fine. Do we need to fill out some of the wick? Even, a little fair value gap right there on Ethereum. The point is, the entire time this entire leg up here, I'm like, yo, we're going to like pull back and we got to consolidate a little bit because it's the healthy thing to do. Obviously we didn't. We went and we just sweep orders, and then what do you get after that? You sweep orders below. So now we're kind of in a similar position where it's like, hey, like, let's just get a pullback. It's going to be scary, but these things typically happen, and if we're not losing 108K, there's really not anything to worry about. And then just go map your levels for whatever chart you really want to look at. Major charts, they all kind of look similar. This is Dow Jones right here. This is something, I don't know, we don't talk about it too much or on a day-to-day basis in the content that we put out, but we watch the stock market a lot, right? Crypto is always going to be tied to macro markets, stock market, things like that. Friday kind of slammed into what could have been a support level for us. We kind of already had this mapped out. I know I liked that we closed above it. Kind of expected a bounce, but there's nothing, that puts us in the clear with a bounce like this, right? It's, just below kind of resistance right here. Sorry, I can zoom in and show this a little bit better, right? But if we're, technically you could say you reclaimed, but again, I abuse these fibs. They're so good though. Until we start clearing fib levels, and simply just still a correction, right?
Good to see a bounce, hopeful to see a bounce, still have support below if need be. But watching the stock market this week, Russell 2000, let this load. There we go. Okay. I don't know why it's doing that with my Wi-Fi. So funny story. There's actually a little tiny baby like gap on. I think was it on the daily? I guess. Basically, this gap that it pretty much already got filled, but technically could fill down to there, and that was like the last line of hope that I saw on Friday for the Russell 2000, because we slammed hard, right? Back underneath the all-time high. This is like 2024, so back in November of 24, and then the 2021 all-time high, which was really the more important one for me, which we did get a bounce, and therefrom like slammed right through that. I couldn't, like, there's nothing I could have looked at this chart on Friday and been like, it makes me think positively about it. It looked really, really, really bad. Kind of just had to hope and pray that we got a bounce in Dow Jones, Nasdaq, S&P, and this would bounce with it. It was the case. The bounce kind of came from, some tweets over the weekend of Trump being like, "No, it's all good. It's behind us." Things like that. Not even going to get into that right now. That sucks. That was a whole that should piss me off. Anyways, but similar kind of situation, right? Like we're not through fibs. Um, we're hopeful to be closing through, closing above reclaiming levels. But let's see follow through. Let's be patient. Let's not. We still have the understanding we can get pullbacks and it's going to be okay. Things like that. Silver still on a tear, pissing me off. Um, I haven't seen anything in the market to suggest that when gold is going parabolic, when silver is going parabolic, that is when crypto does well, right? They typically do not go together. I'm talking about parabolic moves, right? All-time highs on gold, things like that, and it's something we haven't had to deal with. You guys saw me make videos on it, so I won't beat a dead horse, but 45-year cup and handle pattern on silver. This thing is going to go higher, 100% absolutely. My same reasoning for Ethereum going higher and altcoin markets in total too. You don't go through these massive accumulation patterns just to get back to the top and reject. So silver is going higher, right? How high? Right. I think the fibs on here are like maybe as high as like 160, 130, 140. Maybe even higher than that. I have to double check. But my point is too that when we looked at Total Two, even as early as back in August, we get up here and I start instantly saying like, guys, it's going to be a fight. It's never going to be clean. Did I think it would get this nasty? No, I'll be honest, right? I didn't think there's going to be a black swan event and coins were going to be down 90%. But it is going to be a fight, and for that same reason, I think at some point, whether we do get through right here and we have to hit like the 1.618 fib and then kind of chop around before higher, there's going to be a point in time when metals cool out. Typically, these things move extremely slowly. So any type of super volatile movement, gold investors, metal investors get pretty, overly euphoric. Obviously, when there's euphoria in the market, things can't continue going up by definition when people get too euphoric. And also at the same time, typically these things move really, 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 really slow. So whether we can reject under here and just do the chopping here, we need to hit the 1.618 or chop. This thing can move sideways for 6, 7, 8 months and it still be bullish and it's still going to go hit fib extensions and things like that. So we can still get what we want from metals and things like that, even where they're at right now. I believe gold is at or around like a 3.618 fib. So if it wants to stall out and chop around before going and hitting like a 4.236, once silver and gold break out again and crypto bear market sets in, then that's fully a possibility. But kind of just keeping an eye on it. Some days we feel it more than others. Today, obviously, silver was up, but coming off of the weekend and the craziness and the relief from the news of things seem to be getting resolved, at least from what we're hearing. we still ended up pumping today as well. But I think that silver chart is going to be super, super important. All right. So I'm going to try my best to explain this. It's very, very, very technical heavy. I have a super long YouTube video about it this week. Again, it's already in the Discord if you guys want to check it out. But quick overview of what actually caused the liquidations, the cascading that we saw in the market on Friday, right? So a lot of people that I see, it's instantly like market manipulation or Trump or this or they're stealing our coins or whatever. And that stuff, I'm not denying it. I'm not saying that it's not true. Um, it definitely is, and or I can't prove that it's one way or the other. But what we're showing here is the actual, mechanisms that enable those unpriced in news events and bad actors to manipulate and whale, push price around and things like that. The mechanisms that actually allow for that is what we'll talk about. So I'm not going to make an argument about Trump crashed with a tweet or he, screwed crypto over by having a press conference when, he let the stock market close, but obviously crypto is going to be open to kind of take the brunt. We're not going to talk about that, strictly just what actually happened on the back end as best as I can describe, right? So if you go look up like derivatives pricing or books on derivatives pricing or stuff like that, like there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books. There's serious nerds out there. I'm a nerd, so I feel like I can say that, but true nerds, calculus nerds, finance nerds, um, computer science nerds, like even computer physics. I don't know if you guys know this, but I don't know what the exact statistic is. We'll say there's 10,000 people got their physics degree in 1960. Majority of those 10,000 went to, work on rockets, send people to space, planes, weapons, whatever. They worked on all that, right? It's something like 90% of physics PhDs work on Wall Street in 2025. And it's because computer physics, right? Being able to what do we have to do within our data and our systems to be able to move derivative, pricing in 0.2 milliseconds instead of, 0.5 milliseconds or something. So it's actually truly insane the amount of time and effort that gets put into stuff like derivatives and derivative pricing and setting up these systems. That was long-winded, but just to set everything up. So one thing I want to be clear on is these things are two completely separate sides, right? Over here is our spot market on the left-hand side. So this is your Coinbase. This is your, you own it. You send it to your cold wallet. It sits there for however long it's going to sit there, right? Spot market. Okay. On the right-hand side is your derivatives market. It's a system completely of its own, and there's no coins being traded back and forth here at all, ever, under any circumstances. By definition, that's not what a derivative is. These are simply paper contracts or paper coins being traded back and forth for stables USDT, right? And this game, I guess I'll call it, right, is perfectly balanced on both sides at all times. And that's a necessity for this because it's a closed system. It's a zero-sum game. Zero-sum meaning there is an equal number of winners and losers, maybe not in quantity, but in money lost and money gained, right? If Mason takes a $10,000 Bitcoin short at 126K, and I'm like, he's an idiot, it's about to go to 145, and I take a $10,000 Bitcoin long, we are now betting against each other in a zero-sum game. Whatever money he makes is my money being taken, right? So that's what that means, and that helps contribute to the what's it called, the balance that I'm kind of referring to, where literally the dollars on the left and right side have to be balanced because if a customer wants to withdraw, there needs to be money on the other side to pull from, and the exchange has to facilitate that. Okay, so these are orders on the left hand and right hand side, obviously longs, shorts, sells, buys. Okay, and this black line is these two people competing against each other. Like I said, it's always a competition. It's zero sum. Your money is somebody else's money, and one of you is gonna walk away with it. And the exchange does a pretty good job of filling these orders and making sure it's as balanced as it can. Just using consumers or customers' bids and money and things like that. But at the same time, right, I have this down here, automated market maker, right? It will fill in some bids on left and right side just to kind of round out liquidity and orders, make sure everybody gets filled, make sure if there's a large order filled, that there's no slippage. Okay. So slippage would be like if I want to buy $1 billion of Bitcoin, well, the first 250 million that I buy might push price up 1%, 2%, something like that. And if I continue just buying in huge chunks like that, maybe eventually I'm paying 5, 6, 10% higher for my coins from my own purchases. So I'm like pushing up the price for myself. Their liquidity helps with that as well. And then this green arrow here, if you guys have leverage traded at all, you're familiar with funding. Okay, that's one side. If there's a majority of people are long, the longs every 8 hours, every 12 hours, whatever it is set by the exchange, are going to pay the shorts, right? And vice versa, both ways. Okay, so this is kind of how the exchanges kind of fine tune, again, that same balance that we talked about without having to actually get in the automated market maker and take a position, providing liquidity in that way. Okay, so why is this important? Because it all starts, I can't deny it starts with an unpriced in event, which this time happened to be the tariffs and Trump's tweet and how he chose to handle it after the stock market closed, all these things, right? That was kind of the trigger. When that happens, obviously, crypto is going to fall. It's going to fall faster and farther than people expect because it hasn't been priced in, right? Our rate cuts 3 months from now are already being priced in now, right? So some random tweet, not going to be priced in. Orders start getting filled, right? And then this thing kind of begins to thin out, right? Your orders on this side begin to thin out and they start stacking up on the sell side. A normal exchange or any exchange under normal circumstances can 100% withstand that without any cascading effects, without any massive damage or fallout in broader markets, simply by filling out some of the buy side liquidity, right? You guys see this on an example of this would be like Hyperliquid in their vault. Okay, when they're forced to take the other side of a trade, it's because it's so stacked up on one side that kind of by definition they're taking this trade by themselves. They end up actually being right more often than not, or getting crazy entries on coins like that. I'm pretty sure their vault is public and you can actually see what coins and positions and when they've actually had to provide that extra liquidity that I'm talking about. But that's kind of an example, and they're willing to do that because they're getting cheap coins. They're getting to either buy cheap coins or sell on the short side expensive coins, right? And they're down to take it. Yes, and under normal circumstances, that's fine. But when there's so much liquidity built up in the system, when everything is astronomically over leveraged, sometimes even that is not enough, right? And these things start getting taken out further and further. They become less willing to provide that kind of near-term liquidity that I'm right at this point in time. They typically still do have this automated market maker turned on, which they also provide liquidity there as well. Let me see, I lose my train of thought here. Okay, so we talk about how can you actually take position in a leverage trade, right? And there's a couple of different ways you can do it. One is called isolated margin, which means if I have $100,000 in my Bybit account, but I only want to take a $5,000 position on 2 or 3x leverage or whatever it is. I'm going to take my 5,000 from there. I'm going to place it down. I'm going to make the bet. And even if I get liquidated on that position, it's never going to be more than 5,000. I can manually add margin to that trade, right? And what adding margin means is if I have $5,000, okay, and let's say I'm on 2x leverage. Yeah, we'll just say that 2x leverage, right? And the coin goes down 50%. And I don't want that position to be liquidated, right? That would be about 100% down where it would be liquidated. I could take another 5,000 and put it on that position, but now I'm essentially not using any leverage at all, right? Instead of 2x leverage, I'm using normal leverage because I added extra margin. Now I'm only down 50%. It doesn't save me any money because now I'm down 50% on 10,000 versus 100% of 5,000, right? So it's the same exact math, but the point is there's nothing that's going to auto pull from my account to add more position. I have to do it manually. And obviously, if you have stop losses at any point in time on everything that I'm talking about, you would have been saved from this. But a lot of people, that's a separate rant. Anyways, so that's isolated, right? There's also something called cross margin. Okay, so cross margin is basically going to mean that same $100,000 that I have, in my account, if I've set it up in a certain way, which a lot of people choose to do to avoid getting liquidated, that same adding of margin that I just discussed, where I went from a $5,000 position to a $10,000 position, to go from basically 2x leverage to no leverage, that whole thing happens automatically, right? So keep in mind, these bids are all getting taken out. Margin is being added. Okay. So if I am down, let's say it's down again, 50% on 2x leverage, it auto drafts, some more margin, right? What am I trying to say? Oh, so instead of being down 100%, I'm down 50%. But the coin continues to fall, right? And I have to keep adding margin, and it'll keep doing that to keep the position open. I can be down 400, 500, 600, 700, 1,000%, whatever. It'll keep pulling from that account to add margin to the position until that entire account that's completely separate is wiped out, is completely flushed, right? So that is how people can get their accounts drained in that way. But we still haven't gotten to the point where we're, crashing the spot market side, right? We haven't really discussed that at all because we haven't gotten there. But now we'll talk about what a lot of exchanges do offer as well, is borrowing against your spot holdings to go leverage trade. Okay, and that's what we have here. So this is your XRP, SUI, Solana, your stuff that's relatively stable and not stable, but like your major coins, right? Safe plays, they'll be around, good to borrow against, things like that. They've appreciated in price, so people actually do have the freedom to borrow against it, things like that. But that same dynamic can happen with the cross margin account, where price continues to cascade lower and lower and lower. But at the same time, it's pulling from additional margin. How is it getting that additional margin? Well, it's automatically selling off my spot coins, right? So if I have 100,000 XRP that I'm borrowed against for my $5,000 position, it'll keep auto deleveraging that entire thing by selling XRP until that position is eventually liquidated. Again, that's actually how we're affecting spot supply and demand, even though, like I said, derivatives market is completely separate, completely separate. And let's see, where do I move on from here now? Okay, so obviously that's how you see it bleed over into here, right? And this can be anything, right? This can be Bitcoin or Ethereum that I'm going to be borrowing against. It can be mid caps. That's what's represented down here, is just like your mid cap and meme coins and stuff like that. It can be any variety of these things that's getting sold off. I have it set up this way because it's just intuition and kind of what I believe, like, I guess how people would react, and it is kind of assumption. but a majority of the effects from this margin liquidation of like borrowed assets would likely affect, you know, your majors more, in my opinion, your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, and your major altcoins, because that's what people feel safe to borrow against, like I kind of mentioned. But down here, right, we have the automated market maker tied to these mid caps. Okay, these mid caps got hit. They got smoked. I saw Polkadot down like 77% or 75%. It was already at the bear market lows. Like there's nowhere for it to go. Luckily, we have rebounded. But just so you know, like the severity of how hard these mid caps got hit. But a lot of these, in my opinion, got hit harder by this automated market maker than really borrowed against assets, right? I don't know anybody who's borrowing against Filecoin to leverage trade crypto. I'm sure there's a few out there, but you kind of see what I'm saying, right? But what you guys might not know is that a lot of these mid caps, a lot of these meme coins, 100% day to day rely on this automated market maker. Yes, they can pump when there's natural demand, but they heavily rely on that automated market maker, not only for liquidity, but for stability as well, right? Um, and or I guess, why would the exchange have or like list a coin that they have to do that to? Well, in reality, there's probably only Bitcoin, Ethereum. I don't even want to count XRP because the price action day to day is so terrible to trade. But you know, your major coins are really the only things that are like liquid enough for you to really naturally have enough demand to be able to have a derivatives market for. But that doesn't make the exchanges money, right? You're going to go to the exchange that has the most listings, that has all the new coins, that has this, that has that. So if they need to apply the automated market maker to some of those mid caps and low caps and meme coins, right, they're going to do it. So automated market maker really emphasized a sell off hard on these mid caps, as well as these being, you know, beta plays of these larger players, right? So they're already going to move further and harder and things like that to begin with. And then your coins up here got hit pretty hard from this auto deleveraging with borrowed assets, cross margin, things like that. I think I'm going to stop that right there. I do these lines in here kind of talk about how the recovery came in, but definitely check out that long form video if you're still interested in that. Ooh, that was long. Okay. Another video this week. We'll run through this relatively quickly. But in the paid Discord, right? Since we got these two liquidations in here, this is September 22nd and 25th. That was those $2 billion liquidations that we had. But we were kind of seeing some lower time frame momentum on Bitcoin dominance. Plus, we hadn't gotten any sort of back test in a while. Really, I mean, that was kind of our first back test. But anyways, I kind of came to the conclusion that some sort of throwback, dead cat bounce, whatever you want to call it, back to the 60% area was likely to be in order. I didn't think it would happen in such a crazy, you know, kind of violent manner. But it was still good to see. And honestly, the rejection after was, you know, makes me very, very hopeful that we can kind of continue, because we still have the same higher time frame momentum being lost on monthly and 2-week chart and things like that. We did go a little bit higher than I anticipated, but the magnitude of the event kind of, you know, makes this okay. I mentioned that. I don't know if, I think it was in the free updates where I was like, a lot of these charts look really good. They're not perfect when it came to the recovery, but for the circumstances given, really not the worst. This is kind of one of them, and we weren't able to confirm. We confirmed one day, but we weren't really able to get any move out of here. Since then, closed the week under the 60% level, massive upwick, right? Would love to close the week this week below like 59%. That would be awesome. But like we mentioned, and like I said, it's going to come up a couple times during this video. But when you get these large liquidations, okay, it's not uncommon again to go fill out the wick. Okay. And I wouldn't be too upset to see something like this where we kind of slow grind back up into retracement levels and then turn over. You know, typically what you do see when Bitcoin breaks out of ranges and leaves ranges is you do see a spike in dominance, because people are going to have to be focused on and care about Bitcoin for it to get out. That in turn bleeds over into our altcoins, and it's a good thing, obviously. This one, I'm not even going to cover this, or let me speak on it a little bit. I'll show this one thing. Volatility is inbound. Like, wholeheartedly, volatility is so extremely close. We technically don't know which direction it's going to come in. That's not how volatility works. It just means that large moves are potentially on the horizon, right? As you can see here, every time these Bollinger Bands have tightened up in the past, it has led to price appreciation. So that is kind of a good thing. But when we look at a chart like this, which is just implied volatility, and looking at the floor kind of in here, which is where the lowest we have been, it's kind of like cycle by cycle. In a bull market, when implied volatility gets low, it means, we're probably going to see a spike in price soon. In a bear market, when implied volatility gets low, likely going to get a dump. But Bollinger Bands are a little bit better. They tell us, this kind of has to do with volatility and direction, at least in Bitcoin's sake. It's not always like that, but because Bitcoin is cyclical, it tends to work for Bitcoin. But this is the tightest for the last 2 months that the Bollinger Bands have ever been in the history of Bitcoin. So massive, massive move coming faster than anybody expects, further than anybody expects. Gut tells me it's bullish. Charts tell me it's bullish, but there's really no way to confirm it until it happens. But do be, these kind of boring-ish times of chop are going to wrap up. That's kind of why I'm like, let's just get this retracement into these fibs done, and like let's move on. But yeah, just so you guys are aware. And then I do want to mention, let's go over 2 more things. Again, this is a video as well this week, but $98,000, right? This area down here. A couple of weeks ago, I had a video, forgot the exact title. Basically, it was just about explaining how you don't have to get, really, there's no point to get bearish on Bitcoin as long as you're holding key levels, right? As long as you're not taking out lows, right? Not taking out lows, not taking out lows, not taking out lows, not taking out these lows repeatedly over and over and over again. The bull market is going to continue by definition, right? Even in here, right? We didn't take out these kind of macro lows, okay? Same thing in here, right? Even though we do take out lows, yes, right? Simply just back testing an area that we had yet to previously backtest, right? Relatively straightforward technical analysis. Okay, so kind of applying same philosophy and same principle. We're, at a point that we've built a base at 107K for, at least since mid-August, but really kind of early July. Back in here, we've been in the same range. We've now swept liquidity and on a $20 billion liquidation and wasn't able to break or even get to the 98K level. So if we do end up flipping this, and especially, on a weekly time frame, right, just picture some sort of nasty down close candle, like that, right? Make this bad boy red, right? That wouldn't look too good on, even just eyeball test on this chart, right? So I get pretty cautious if we start closing below 98K, especially on a weekly level. Again, I want to see those fibs hold and this be the low. Okay. That one's kind of not a silly point, but I'm not gonna lie. This one to me is alpha, right? If you're gonna pay attention, lock in. This one to me, I haven't made a YouTube video on this. It doesn't even really apply to the liquidations or any of the events last week. but it's something we've been watching for a while in the paid Discord, and I kind of want to be on record in public for saying it. So one thing I've been looking at, right? I'm always looking at cycle timing, right? So this is total two down here. So I want to go see every time. I want to look at any chart in relation to what the altcoin market was doing at that time, right? If I look at a chart for egg prices and I notice that the altcoin market goes absolutely parabolic every time eggs are over $4 a dozen or whatever, right? Perfect. Obviously, that's a silly example, but that's like how I view crypto and how I look at things, right? I can't pull fractals. I can't look at time periods and price action if it doesn't align with where we're at within the cycle. Can I go back this far? Not really. Okay. Well, anyways, in and around when we were getting some of the most explosive moments in total to last cycle, what was the dollar doing? Okay, this is kind of the yellow box in here where kind of our full, final leg in the altcoin market came in, but really the what am I trying to say? I guess nuts and bolts, lame way to say it, but the nuts and bolts of the move, God, fucking cornball, came one, brother. YouTube hates me specifically. Okay. Hopefully I didn't cut out for too long. Yeah, we'll have to figure that out. I have the like Wi-Fi mesh extending things, but what I notice is a lot of times, depending what I'm using, it needs me to change it to like a certain setting or bandwidth. So I haven't streamed on YouTube, so maybe I need to change it to something else. But anyways, one thing I vividly remember in here with the dollar currency index, with the DXY, was everybody was like, send it to $0, dollar is dead, it's going to zero, Bitcoin's going to $1 million, all in here. And I just remember this being like the absolute consensus. So this is another reason why this fractal has always been kind of interesting to me. And it got brought to my attention. I have been following it every once in a while just to make sure that it is kind of sticking with this pattern. This is this entire leg down right here, which does align well with what we've seen. From, you can kind of line it up a little bit better in there if you want to get perfect with it. But I saw a bunch of tweets this week, kind of in the inverse direction, about how like stocks are going to crash, and bear markets here and all this stuff, pointing to the dollar currency index. Obviously, I've been following the fractal, and the last time I saw that was down here when Total 2 was growing crazy, altcoins were going crazy, and everybody was so confident that it was going to break lows. Everybody was super confident that it was going to break the highs. So I pulled it up again, and I was like, damn, yeah, this is following pretty close. But my point is that in this final leg down, right, if we do, maybe we need to go a little bit higher, but we get some sort of rejection, right? In this final leg down is, again, the craziest point in time in the altcoin market. Let's see if I can make this a little, does it want to? Yeah, do this. Right, so the crazy kind of final phases, peak prices in the altcoin market, and then again you see it once it gets into this macro level and everybody's calling for lower, ends up reversing and bottoming out in there. My point is kind of just be on the lookout. I'll probably bring this up again at some point. So when I start talking about the dollar currency index again, you'll know what's what. This fractal will come back out, but interesting dynamic to point out. And again, too, like if we, like, let's say we get back down here, okay, we're right here, and Ethereum is at $12,000, and Bitcoin's at whatever it's going to be at, and we're counting 5 waves, or we're on wave 4, or we're on wave 3, on total 2, like in a breakout, wave 5 of a breakout, things like that. I'm going to be screaming top, and I'm going to be citing this chart to do so, because at that point it would be identical sentiment to the last time we were there, and everybody's going to be calling for lower, and altcoins are going to be astronomically high, and it's just not going to be what people think. That is all I have there. Mason asked me about AVAX. Let's pull it up. My computer will allow me. My computer will be so kind. Count up that baby, I don't know where I'm on. Really a lot of coins look like this, but I mean, AVAX is fine, dude. If I was looking at, I mentioned that like with Bitcoin key levels and stuff like that, on Friday, yeah, see perfectly. On Friday, I was like, closing for a lot of coins. I was like closing more lenient for a lot of stuff when I was in the live stream. I think it might have even been like a level like this, but I was like on the daily time frame, closing over this level. Can't see the chart. The hell? At all? I'm confused. Maybe that text didn't come back, or maybe that text was delayed. Let me know if you can't see the chart, because I'm gonna get tripped out. I'm gonna give you a few seconds to answer. Still can't. What the hell? Let me stop sharing. Entire screen. Any better now? That's weird. Okay, dope. Yeah, working out the bugs here. Working out the bugs. I didn't know that was a thing. So yeah, so this down here was the level I was like, I would love to close back above, this level on the daily time frame. 99% of coins really did a good job and did. Even did better than I thought. This was my level for like the week. I was like, and if we can close the weekly above this, like that's awesome. Again, majority of coins did, and some of them even got it on the same day, which was really good. But yeah, AVAX is one that just in general, I really do like. It's kind of on my list of laggards down in here potentially, but I think it will go with kind of some of those major coins. Take this for what it is too. It's never a guarantee that we go hit full 4.236 extensions. But getting a kind of blue chip, strong, solid altcoin project that has potential to do a 12x at this point in the cycle is pretty crazy to me. But there's a lot of stuff out there, right? There's a lot of stuff out there, and if we are going to go higher, I don't think people are bullish enough on altcoins yet. But AVAX is definitely a good one. Right back at you, goat. Right back at you, dog. All right. I know we got some more people in here, so if I can answer somebody else's question, I definitely will. And or Mason, if you got another question. A lot of coins look really similar. I'll still answer those. I'll still answer questions on coins, but a lot of coins do look really similar. So we might get started talking about the same thing if we go down that road. But I'm down for whatever. Down for whatever. Grab my phone. Oh man, you guys will have to let me know what you think about the content this week because I try to go for like the more longer form. Underrated go right now. How many people are on the stream? 7. 7 people. Well, it's recorded. More people can see this later. I don't know if I want to say it. 7's too many. 7's too many. That's too many people to know the secret. Now I don't want to say it on the recording, but Mason, you know where me and you stand. So maybe DM me, and if yeah, I was gonna say maybe DM me, and if I happen to see it, somehow the answer gets back to you. You know, we keep it discreet. But nah, there's a few like coins out there that are risk to reward wise, right? Absolutely insane. Like if you're gonna be a complete degenerate and bet your entire like rotation on it could do like 30x, but it also could do like 150%. So I'm obviously I'm not gonna like full port stuff like that on my rotations, but I do want to get allocated to them. But I can definitely share a few with you that are underrated, safe plays. There's a couple like crazy punts out there, like I mentioned. Um, but yeah, no, it's a wild time. I've never seen anything like that happen. Like I can't emphasize that enough. I've seen that kind of mechanics that we talked about with auto liquidations and deleveraging and stuff like that. I've seen that happen before, which is why I knew to like look into it to make sure that's what occurred this time as well. But when it came to like coins dropping that far and that fast, holy shit, I've never seen that. I know a lot of people are kind of saying that right now. Um, but seriously, from somebody that's been around a while, and from other people that I know that have been around a while in our conversations with each other, you guys should definitely be proud of yourself because you definitely earned a few stripes. That's the kind of stuff that breaks people. That's the kind of stuff that people never return to crypto after. So at the end of this bull run, when everybody tells you like, "Damn, you got lucky," or "You did this," or um, "I could have done the same thing," or whatever, you need to be confident and be like, "Fuck no, you couldn't have." Because look at what I had to go through, and that's something that you can definitely cite because that was insane. I've never seen something happen like that, especially at bear market lows for a lot of coins, like just completely breaking their charts. Um, I wasn't freaking out in the immediate because I knew there would be some sort of relief bounce, but I was talking with people in the group and I'm like, "Yo, we might have to completely change the strategy." I don't think that's what's happening now that we've had price play out a little bit. But some of those charts were absolutely cooked for like an hour or 2 hours, however long that took to play out. But I was like, oh my gosh, I was stressing. I have like a list of like 100 coins that I watch for like potential rotations and stuff. And I'm like, I'm about to have to dig through this again and reassess everything. And it ended up turning out okay. But now you guys should definitely be proud of yourselves for sure. Windshield Jeremy asks, do you think next cycle will be harder? I think there's gonna be different challenges, same challenges, but different challenges at the same time. Hopefully this is a long-term chart before I go pulling this up looking stupid. Um, a lot of people would say no, not a long-term chart. A lot of people would say this cycle was hard. And I don't. It's been hard in the sense of it's been frustrating at times. But I don't think anything about this cycle has been really too particularly difficult, if we're being honest. It's been kind of straight up. So to answer your question, right? There has been no, right? This is much different, right? Staying in the same kind of range for 3 years is much harder. You know, staying at these bear market lows for this long is much harder. Granted, you do get, you know, kind of a more gradual rise up, similar to what we had this cycle, which makes it easy. But I think there's definitely a major possibility that it is more difficult. I think a couple of ways. I think you guys know I'm not in the camp of extended cycle. I'm gonna continue to think that, and if it does happen to extend, I will gladly be wrong. If I am wrong, that means again all my targets are gonna get hit. They're gonna get smoked even. If the cycle wants to extend, things are gonna go further, longer, things like that. But if we do happen to get some sort of extended cycle, is the bear market extended? Does that make it harder? That's a possibility. And then also too, if instead of you know, this kind of these vertical moves, you know, do we get some sort of, you know, retracement, crash, and then, you know, all this kind of more similar style to 2020's correction era? That would definitely be more difficult emotionally for sure. But yeah, I think there's definitely a couple of things lining up for potentially different cycle length and you know, it just being a different style of correction. That's a good question. A lot of people just ask like, how long will the bear market last, and how low will it go, and stuff like that. And you don't really know that stuff until you can watch it play out, and until you get a Bitcoin top to come in, you're not going to really be able to estimate how low it will go. I don't think it'll be easier though. I will say that a lot of people are in the camp of like, institutions are here now. It's going to be so easy. It's going to be institutional money, and there's going to be this. I don't think it'll be easier. So I will say that. I can actually guarantee that it won't be easier. But damn, I was supposed to post another video today. Now it's 11:59. Let's see what I was about to post.
Happened with last.
All right, I need to post that. Any other questions? If not, probably a good place to wrap it up. Mason, you're gonna DM me. Special privileges. Really, I can. I'm not gonna say it. I already played it out enough. I was like, really, I'll just tell everybody in here because I appreciate it. But if anybody's seeing it and you want to know it too, definitely shoot me a DM. But yeah, I'll catch you guys later. I appreciate you guys showing up, showing out. Sorry about cutting out. We'll get that figured out. We'll figure out what bandwidth YouTube Live once my Wi-Fi on. But anyways, yeah, man, I appreciate you guys. Tell your girlfriend I said what's up. Tell her stop stressing you out, stop spending your money, and let you worry about these coins. She's gonna think I'm a terrible influence. Anyways, I'll catch you guys later. See y'all.